Welcome to the 13th episode of the Kentucky Elk Hunter webinar series. I think this, can't decide, I think this meets the number of episodes we did last season. So we're going to well exceed that. We got several other good ones planned. But today we are going to focus on elk calling. And that's something that you know that I've brought up several times, that as the summer's gone on, that was kind of one of my things right there with getting in shape, was getting the call, especially for those bull hunters. Season's coming up. You still got time. I said on the last webinar, Amazon will have you one in 2 to 5 days. You can find about whatever you want and get it to the house and figure it out. So we've got a very special guest today. We've got Trinity Shepherd. He is the owner and head guide at TLC Outfitters. He's also a member of KEGA, the Kentucky Elk Guides Association. So I'm going to turn it over to him real quick and let him more thoroughly introduce himself and stop the share. So Trinity, let folks know who you are.
My name's Trinity Shepherd. Like I said, I'm the owner and head guide at TLC Outfitters. This will make our 18th year of being able to get out and chase these big woolly boogers across eastern Kentucky, man. Really excited. Also, I'm a member of KEGA, the Kentucky Elk Guide Association. And sometimes people don't think about it, but I'm also a state government worker. I work for Kentucky State Parks, and I've had the pleasure since about 2002, we were able to create the elk viewing tours. And we've been doing that, man, for 20 years. So, whether we're out, taking people and letting them photograph them, tell them about this awesome restoration project that we've got, thanks to Kentucky Park and Fish and Wildlife, or we're out hunting them, man. I love to deal with elk, and just a real honor to be here today.
Yeah, so hunters got people they want to, they come out and have a good time, want to show people some elk. They can talk to Jenny Wiley State Park and get a good tour, pretty much through the summer and fall.
Yeah, we try to do them fall and winter. We try to stay away from them during the calving seasons, of course, May and June. But we'll start those up here real soon in September and let people listen to them bugle. If they don't want to go hunt them, they can go view them and take pictures of them. So yeah, we've been real successful with that. But I've had the pleasure early on in my career, before I ever became a guide, of working with a lot of great folks from the Kentucky Park and Fish and Wildlife that's really helped educate me about our elk, learning about the history of them and the restoration project. And that later on, turned me on to loving to hunt these things, man. So, it's been a win-win, to say the least.
Yeah, I guess you were a familiar face there since I started in about 06, 07. And then I think I had a transfer case on my work truck blow up at one of your camps. Over there on Little Buckhorn Road, man. It rained for about 4 days.
Yep.
That thing decided to explode right there on the road getting out of there. So, but all the outfitters and guides helped, with my graduate work. I can't tell you how many times we talked and you killed one with a collar, and I'd go over there and get the samples I needed and kind of let the hunter know a little bit about that bull, what I knew. So that's worked out great. So before we jump into it, I'll also give a plug for Jenny Wiley. Joe and I have spent many nights out there for work, and that is a wonderful place. The cabins are nice. The lodge rooms are nice. We haven't gotten a lot of sleep with Jenny Wiley because we're usually not sleeping much while we're working, but it's a great place, and the daggum food is good. If somebody's looking for a place, that's up there in Unit 6, pretty central. You can walk out the back door and not be too far away from elk at that point. So consider that for your lodging. You won't be disappointed there. So just a couple of housekeeping things. I am behind on calls and emails, as many as you will know. Hopefully by the time you see this, we will have talked. That's my main priority here the last few days of this week. Just working to get caught up. If you need a waiver for some of the properties that you're on, regulated areas you're on, send them our way. We'll get them turned around to you as quick as we can.
I'm guilty of being behind right now. I wouldn't.
Joe's good. He'll be caught up, but those things. So we're essentially a middleman on those waivers. So there can be some lag time when we send them to the company. They work regular business hours, they take vacations, those kind of things. So if you're sitting on one, get them to us. We'll get those out. So, all right, Joe, let's jump right into the meat of this thing and talk about some elk calling. I'm hoping to learn some stuff. As we talked about before, I will be doing a little calling for Joe out in Colorado. He's not heard me since a day in 2018 in Robinson Forest, and I
It was awful.
I gave some bad calls.
It was awful. It was like a little mouse squeak. It was.
Yeah, I was more or less. I tried to deliver. Was I trying to bugle or trying to cow call?
Granted, he did exactly what we're going to advise everybody not to do, and he bought a call on the way down.
I left the office. It was kind of a last second deal where you needed some support, and literally pulled in Sportsman's and bought sunglasses, a little Primos calf call, which I like now that I know what I'm doing, and one of those Primos with the reed already on the bugle. And you can't really drive and bugle at the same time, I've decided. So I'm a big practicer of duck calling in the truck, going to work and that kind of stuff. Didn't work for bugle. I was next to worthless, except when the pack out happened.
And he was a rock star, I will admit.
Yeah, they let me eat dinner that night after I did the pack out. So y'all take it away. I'm gonna try to sit back and learn some stuff and throw a couple tidbits in as we go.
Yeah, so I guess what we'll start with this, because we are going to advocate for people to go out and practice, but from the start of September until the beginning of elk season, it is illegal to go out into the woods of eastern Kentucky and mimic the sound of an elk. So if you're doing that scouting right before season, just going to throw that out there. You get caught, you'll probably get a citation. Obviously, it's fine to do once season starts, but just keep that in mind as we go forward. But after that little housekeeping, I guess I wanted to start, Trinity, just kind of go through some of the types of available calls that are out there, like what might be available to people, and then how would somebody go about picking like their first elk call, or what would best suit them?
The two most common questions I get as an outfitter is, how do you choose a call? What kind of call to get, and what kind of calls are there to get? When you go and look at hunting products today, there's all kinds of different things to buy, no matter what you're looking for. There's all kinds of different brands, there's all kinds of different gimmicks. The one piece of advice I have to everybody: start off simple. Don't try to start off, if you've never called elk before, don't try to start real complex, because you'll get really frustrated right off the bat, and you'll kind of give up on it. So you want to start simple. Also, try to go with a reputable company. We're at the point now to where we're looking at different types of calls, trying to be more unique in our calling. But there's a lot of big names out there in the calling industry today that has been tried and true throughout the years and decades. And you just kind of want to read some reviews. The internet's a great place to start. Or if you've got any buddies that, hunt elk, they can give you some pointers as well. Starting out, if you've never mouth blown a call, if you've never used a reed call, especially if you've never used a diaphragm call, you want to stay away from those. And of course, starting out, the easiest thing I think everybody knows is a push button call, and that's and there's different ones that you can try, but the most common one, of course, is what's called a hoochie mama, and that's from Primos. And it's just a simple push button call, and we'll get into the calling in just a few moments. But this is an entry level call. I'll be honest with you, I carry one of these with me even today. I've seen elk out there. I've seen bulls that won't come to some of the best calling that we've thrown at them, but they'll come to this. Being able to have different weapons in your arsenal as far as calls to be able to use, sometimes just like in turkey hunting, is a good thing. And then you can step up from that to a reed call, with an open reed, just like some of y'all. They're not open reeds, but some of you duck callers may use reed calls, to call ducks. So, this is an open reed or a pressure call. This is a Rocky Mountain call, and that's just
I have that same one.
have that same one. So, that's a voodoo call, a Rocky Mountain voodoo. And then I've got a Carlton call. That's an open read. And then I've got a Primos, call with an open read. And all these are going to be different pitches, different sounds, different things you can do with them. I've got a flex tone call here that I am able to use. And it's not an open read. It's more of an enclosed read, but it's got a button to control the reed pressure. So instead of controlling the reed with my lips or with my mouth, I can do so by pushing a button. So a lot of different calls out there, and then graduating right up, of course, if you're a turkey caller, there's a diaphragm call. It's made just like a turkey call as far as the frame. It's got a metal frame with the tape around it and latex reeds, different cut reeds. This one's got a sound chamber on it, but those reeds are going to be tuned a little bit differently or stretched a little bit differently, whether they're tighter, or looser, the latex, and it's going to get the different calls. So, you graduate from those, whether you're looking for cow calls, bull calls, bugle tubes. I mean, you've seen some of those on the intro. I've got two different types of bugle tubes right there. These don't make any sound on their own. They're just hollow tubes. They got some springs in them, but we use these in connection with the diaphragm. And then they make bugle tubes also, like this bugle tube, that's got a latex reed itself, and you don't have to use a diaphragm. Some people, I've seen people that can't use a diaphragm. They just can't stand it in their mouth. So this has got changeable reeds on it. So does this one. This is a mossbacker known as dual now. This has got a tunable reed that you don't ever have to carry a diaphragm with. So a lot of different gimmicks, a lot of different styles. And I always tell everybody's, well, what's the best call? Well, the best call is the one that you're the most comfortable with and that you practice with the most.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think, we've covered this a lot, but most of our hunters in Kentucky, 75% or more each year have never done this before. So, I think starting out, you just pick what's closest to what you're used to, like a hoochie mama or a bite and blow. Those are incredibly easy to work with, but I've been a turkey hunter forever, longer than I've hunted elk. And, recalling it, definitely is something that I kind of gravitate more towards because it's just what I'm familiar with. But I always tell people, how much time you have to practice, if you're watching this on September 1st, I wouldn't exactly go pick out a bugle tube and a couple sets of like diamond calls, Yeah. It's probably not going to be very good.
No.
Try.
Yeah, you can try. Yeah. Hey,
you got somebody there to pick up your slack for you, like
right.
John had that day, then it's all right. But
that's right.
Yeah. And, the thing is that there's a lot of good tutorials out there. You'll get out of with this entire elk hunt. What I try to tell our clients that sign up, you're going to get out of your hunt what you put into it. If you've got the guy that don't, do any walking, don't do any kind of cardio work, he or she comes up here and tries to walk the mountains or it's probably not going to be that enjoyable. You take somebody who's a do-it-yourself hunter that don't practice calling, and you get up here and then you break the call out of the pack or you just did the night before, probably not going to be that enjoyable for you. So, putting the practice in with your calling and with different aspects of the hunt, you're going to get a better hunt and practicing with this, especially this hunt of a lifetime, man. This is a hunt of a lifetime, and hopefully, you drew that tag and now it's time, or you should already been putting the time in practice.
Yep. We've heard that over and over. Everybody we've had on here. So
I think we've said that more than anything else.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, let's I guess let's move through. If you're comfortable doing it, let's start doing some, basic elk call demonstrations, talking about the different sounds. So, most people, they don't really understand how vocal elk are. And it's not just during the rut. People always think of bugles, right? They think of a bugling bull. That's most people's idea of an elk, but they're vocal all the time, all year long. And just like any other critter, they make different sounds to signify different, emotions or what's going on. let's just kind of walk through some of that stuff just early on, like your basic stuff that a cow hunter should be able to, or a hunter should be able to make, like a basic mews, chirps, things of that nature, that are always helpful for everybody.
Absolutely. So, by now, I hope you know that a female is a cow and a male is called a bull. It's called a calf. The most vocal calls that you're going to use are, of course, going to be cow calls. Everybody asks me, well, how do you know how much of one to use there? I don't. There's no two situations the same. Sometimes you just gotta listen. And for those that have never hunted elk and you need a comparison, I always use, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, but just use turkey hunting, for instance. A lot of our hunters have hunted turkey. To everybody, it's like hunting a 700 or 800 pound turkey when you're bull hunting. We're talking about hunting the males, and we'll get to the cows a little bit later. But it's all about, especially early on. You've got 2 weeks in September of archery, then you got a 2 5-day season of a gun firearm season. This is during the rut. So being able to use these calls to either locate a bull or call a bull in. We've even sometimes used it when we don't have any bugling bulls to call cows in and bring a bull with them. So there's different scenarios, but just starting out with the most simplest of calls with the hoochie mama, and then we'll do a couple of them, and that's the mew. The mew is the common vocalization of the cow elk. Mews are just kind of, they're a common sound to say, hey, I'm over here. How are you? Hope you're having a good day, so on and so forth. Mews are also used during the rut for letting bulls know when they're receptive for reproduction or when they're in estrus, but it's more of an estrus mew or an estrus whine. But just starting out with a common mew, and this is with the hoochie mama, so it's got a hole in the end of it right here with this soft rubber end like that. You just cover the hole and you just basically push down. It's got a plunger on the inside of it. And as you push down, you start from high pitched, and it goes to low. When you hit the plunger, it kind of deadens it.
Not able to pick that one up. Are you, John?
No, I didn't hear that.
It's just too soft and subtle.
Very subtle.
So yeah, so that's the common mew, and that's probably the most used call as an elk hunter that you're gonna do. You're gonna mimic the mew. Here's an open reed mew. Now this is gonna be a little bit louder, but this is just a bite and blow, or you're gonna use your bottom lip or top lip, depending on how you blow it. But this is a mew with an open reed. And that's
try coming just a little bit closer to your microphone if you don't care. We kind of had some issues like this too. I think when you get these really high pitched sounds, I think sometimes it just kind of like blurts it out.
It probably drowns it out. So here's the bite and blow. This is a Rocky Mountain call. You can see the open reed right there. And all I'm doing is just putting air on that reed, blowing that reed, and using my bottom lip to shorten the reed, which gives me a high pitched sound, scooting my lip down to expose more of the reed, and that gives me a low pitched sound. So you're going high to low. Here's the hoochie mama again.
I'm unable to pick up any of it.
I think it's got to be Zoom hosing us somehow.
So you're not hearing any of that?
Wasn't hearing a thing. I think it's.
I could hear like a smidge on your bite and blow.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Nothing.
Huh.
I can hear your voice plain as day.
Yeah,
see if you can make a bugle. I'm curious if it's just going to. It's got to be shutting out the higher decibel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can hear your growl. I can hear your growl and nothing else.
That's
at the
it.
start.
What in the world?
It's got to be something with the speaker.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can adjust like audio settings.
Are you on a desktop or a laptop phone?
Laptop.
Go in there and go in there to your microphone, and there's a thing down there that says suppress background noise, and hit click that right above that. There's automatically adjust microphone volume, and then click the low on the suppress background noise.
Hang on just a second.
We are professionals here, Trinity, like I told you before.
That's right.
Well, you're going to have to get me into this microphone. So I go to settings.
No, go to the where your mute button is down there and click that little arrow next to it. Where it opens, it'll open up a little adjustment page.
Yeah, it'll say there where the microphone is, there's a little bitty arrow in the top right corner of that box. And I just kind of hover over it, and then it'll have audio settings at the bottom.
Okay, audio settings. Okay.
Yep, and then I think you need to hit. There's an automatically adjust microphone volume with a little checkbox. I would uncheck that one.
Okay.
And then on the background noise, I would just hit the low button there. We'll try to keep it from doing anything fancy.
Okay.
That growl comes in real nice though.
Yeah,
But
let's try that. I think it's got to be something that's filtering this out. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. We might get our first edited version this year.
I know. Try her again. There it is.
Perfect.
Hey, IT support comes through every once in a while.
You all right, John? I'll tell you,
That's
man.
right.
I'm
It's the mark of a
impressed.
good podcast
Hey,
host.
I was sweating that one because this be a real hard one to do if we can't hear the noises.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Yeah.
this is take 2, right?
Yeah. Let's just start about what a mew is and how we make that sound.
Okay. So the most common sound that elk hunter is going to make is going to be the mew, and that the mew is the vocal call of a cow. Now, a lot of the sounds that you're going to make is based off of a mew, whether you're doing just a common mew or you're doing an estrus whine, you're doing a chirp. All of it's kind of based off of the mew or the start of the mew. And there's a lot of different vocalizations that we're going to talk about. We're just going to talk about some common ones to hopefully help you in the elk woods. But starting out with the hoochie mama, which is the push button call. I'm just going to give you just a common mew, and all you're going to do is push down. This is a soft end right here, soft rubber end with a hole in it. You put your thumb over the hole. That's just the common mew. And basically all they're doing is that's kind of a communal call among the cows. Hey, I'm over here. How are you doing? And it's just kind of to keep the herd or to keep the group in check. The same call or a mew can be used with bite and blow or this open reed call. This is a Rocky Mountain call. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off high pitched, and I'm going to just bring it low. And the way I do that is I'll shorten the reed with my bottom lip, and I just run my lip down the reed, and that goes from high to low. And it's just a real quick snap of the call. Like I said, that was an open reed call. Here's a Primos open reed call. And you can get real soft or louder with that, depending on, maybe you got a windy day, or maybe you've got, maybe you're in tight. Depends on the volume. And then, of course, moving to the most advanced, which is a diaphragm call. I can add a bugle tube into that to get a little more. Just because this is called a bugle tube, you can also use your cow sounds with it to amplify it more. And when you do that, and you use these different calls, or if you just use a diaphragm, if you're more, you can actually get kind of a little herd going on. You know, you can actually sound a lot more than just one elk, and sometimes that'll help. If you're hunting a weary old bull, a more mature bull, he's heard everything in the woods, and sometimes being more than one elk or sounding like more than one elk with a couple different calls. I can have a hoochie mama in one hand and have my diaphragm or my bite and blow, and I can have two different call sessions going, and it can help out sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we kind of likened it to turkey hunting. I don't get as crazy with elk calls just because some of them are a little bit bigger, but I definitely try to have 3 to 5 different calls, and probably 3 of those are going to be reads for me because that's what I enjoy more. But I definitely, it's like turkeys, you're striking a different tune until they gobble, or trying a different color when you're fishing, until you find what bites.
Right.
So I take that approach myself as well.
Yeah. And my attitude towards what I'm going to carry to the field with me, if I've got it, I can use it. So if I've got 3 or 4 calls, calls don't take up a whole lot of room in the pack. So that's what I've got, and you never know, that one call on that one day that you think may not do too good may be the exact thing that brings success. Now, as we go on into chirps, chirps are more of an excited call. You got to be careful with chirps sometimes, because chirps can also, be a signal of danger. So you want to, there's a fine line between a chirp and a bark, if you will. So a chirp's just a real quick snap. I always tell everybody, you do a mew, but you do it a lot quicker, and it's more high pitched. Sometimes the cows will chirp at the calves, to get them to, kind of straighten up the way they want to be, or they'll give a little excited chirp, if they're playing and having a time. Once again, it's just it's a herd mentality call, and when you introduce, or you're coming in and you introduce these calls in, you have to have a herd mentality. You got to be in, you're interacting with these animals, and you got to be smart with your calling. So the chirp, you can actually do a chirp on a hoochie mama. It's not going to be as clear with the push button call, but what I do is instead of starting all the way up here and getting a full call through the push button, I'll actually depress the button down a little bit. And just a chirp, it's just exactly like it sounds. The same thing with the biting blow, with the open reed. Instead of getting so much movement on this reed to go from high to low, I'll stay just high pitch. And you can move up and down to get a pitch, but the thing that you don't want to do if you're going to chirp, you don't want to get that elongated sound. Then you're back to a mew. So you want to make sure that you're kind of just single noting the chirp a little bit, and you can do that with all of these calls. I like to use a chirp with a mew, so we'll start off with mews in our calling, just real soft and real easy, and it all depends on what's going on. But then I'll move to a chirp just to try to get a little more excitement out of what's going on, and I escalate things as I go up, and we'll talk about what I call the final straw is the estrus whine in just a moment, as to why we use it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fine with it, I think we're fine to keep on progressing. I mean, that's really the main point of this is just to kind of give some demonstrations, different cost types, and maybe a sequence of what you would do, just so our hunters have an idea of what to be expecting and practicing for.
Okay. So as we move on and we progress a little bit more, we've covered the mews, which is the communal vocalization. We've talked about chirps. Now we're going to talk about the estrus whine. And the guys, these guys here know more about this than I do, but you know, during the time of estrus, but correct me if I'm wrong, but a cow will come into estrus for about a 24-hour period of time. It can be a little bit more, a little bit less, but she can let a bull know that she's receptive by an estrus whine. And when a bull hears this estrus whine, I mean, it's music to his ears. This time of year is all about, gathering up those cows, creating those harems. He's got to go around and check all these cows, daily. He's got to, fend off other bulls trying to come in and take over. It's a hectic time. But when she's receptive, she can let him know, and that's the reason the estrus whine is such a powerful tool for us. And a lot of times that estrus whine will get the reaction where maybe the other ones won't. An estrus whine is basically a mew that is drawn out, a little more high pitched and more excited. Now, on the hoochie mama, you've got an estrus whine. It's actually got a tunable chamber. So what I do is I just twist the call. I can twist the call up and down, and it says on here different levels of call. But like the last call, which is the highest pitch on this push button call, is what's called an estrus cow. And with this push button call, you're really only going to get, that one sequence. Now here's a mew. You can hear the difference. The bottom drops off the end of it. But when you go to an estrus cow with this, it kind of stays up. It's more of an excited, loud call. Now, I rarely ever use this for an estrus call because I can get a little more excitement out of my reed call or my diaphragm. Now with my reed call, I'm going to use this one for example. This is a Primos call. With my reed call, sometimes that estrus whine is just not a crystal clear note. Some of us have been out in the turkey woods and we work extensively to perfect our turkey calling. And we get out there and we hear a real hen and we think, man, that don't sound anything like, she doesn't sound as good as I do on a turkey call. Yep. The same thing with elk calling. I imagine that no two cows sound the same. I don't know that for certain. I can't ask them, but don't get hung up on absolutely mimicking, maybe your buddy or whatever. The most important thing is to know syllables, know the notes, and know what to do. And different calls will make different sounds. But when you do the estrus whine, it's an excited call, and you can kind of go up and down with it. And you can draw it out. That's one call, and then here's the Rocky Mountain call. And you just draw it out. And man, I'll tell you what, that'll get those bulls fired up. If there's a bull in the area that is vocal and he hears that, or even if he isn't vocal, maybe you're hunting an area that don't have a high density, maybe on the piece of property that you have. But if there's a bull on the property and he hears that, that's kind of music to his ears. He's like, yeah, there's a cow on the property that's going to be receptive. And the same thing with the diaphragm. It's just, you can get more variation out of a diaphragm or out of the reed call as you can the push button call. And you put a combination of a couple of these calls together, and you've got, 2 or 3 cows that are receptive or estrus. And that's the call a lot of times that we use to fire the elk up or fire the bulls up, and then we'll close them off or we'll do the closing with, more subtle, soft sounds. Because once you get him coming, you don't want to blow him out. And we'll talk about calling tactics here in just a few moments and sequences. So, Are there anything else as far as cow wise you want to cover?
I mean, I think that's a great way to start it. You know, those are really the bigger ranges of what we're looking for. And I'm hoping John's taking notes. I like that enthusiasm in those last little calls there.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well, and just, I mean, how many cow herds have we been around? And it sounds, I mean, exactly what Trinity was saying. Everybody sounds different. And you can tell with that mew, with just their mews, like if they're having a good time or if, you know, maybe you bumped them and they're trying to gather the flock back up and get out of town. Just amazing. Just like us talking to each other, we're all talking calmly and doing our thing. I mean, if we was excited and something else, you'd be able to hear that. You can hear that in a group of cows without a doubt.
Absolutely.
So.
And just to recap, just kind of to go back over, and listen, we can sit here for hours and talk about different vocalizations. These are just the common ones that you need to start with, and I really urge people as they master their calls, or as they become better on their calls, learn more vocalizations. There's great tutorials out there. Don't be afraid to look into them and listen and see what a lot of different hunters from different places have to say. But just to recap, you've got a mew, common call. You've got the chirp, that's kind of a excited or kind of a stern call, depending on how you look at it. More of an excited call, and then you've also got a estrus whine. So, you know, in a combination of those three calls, you can really have enough in your arsenal to be able to bring those elk in, especially during the rut. Now, we'll talk about in just a few moments how you can use these calls to be able to do different things.
Yeah, and for my money, you know, I don't know, 90% of what I would do is pretty much going to be those cow sounds, right?
That's exactly right. It's a good 75-25. People are 80-20, 80% cow call, 20% bull call. That's what I always, as a rule of thumb.
Yeah. It's just, you know, again, it varies by situation, but if you can do those few things and that's all you have time to focus on, that's great. You know, be good at something, be good at what they're speaking the most of, and I think you can be successful. Especially, I think too, you know, you're more apt to blow a bull out with the bugle if he's not the right bull or not in the right mood. You can get away with a lot more with a cow. It's not as aggressive. You know, you're trying to get him to do something he's interested in, so it's not as risky of a situation.
That's right. So,
well, you want to step into some bull sounds and how we would use those? I mean, just like cows, there's a blue million varieties and variations of the sounds you can make and what they mean.
yeah.
Let's start with something simple, just a basic bugle, you know, what you might use to figure out if there's elk around.
Yeah. So, you know, if you've not dealt with elk a whole lot, just a general rule of thumb, you know, the time for elk to bugle, usually a few of them, not a whole lot of them, but a few of them will start around the end of August, majority of them in September, going through October. You may get a stray bull here and there, depending on, you know, how many cows are left over into November bugling. But September, October is the time. That's the reason our seasons are set the way they are. That's set during the time where the peak rut is going on, and the last 2 weeks of September going into October is usually what we consider, you know, the peak rut activity. And that's during the time when these big bulls will bugle. Now, you know, bulls are very dominant, especially big mature bulls. They do a lot of different things. You know, bulls will, you know, rub trees to establish dominance. You know, they have scent glands. You know, a lot of times we think about whitetail deer, they have scent. They'll use scent. They make wallows. But they're very vocal during this time. And the vocalizations that they have, you know, are a wide range, but just a couple things, 2 or 3 things that maybe we can give you, you know, is starting off with is just a basic bugle. Now, a basic bugle and I'm not a music major, so if I butcher this, I apologize. But a basic bugle starts off low, moves up, I guess, an octave or whatever you want to call it, and moves up in pitch, and then it drops off. And depending on if a bull is just lazy bugling or location bugles, whether he's challenging, whether he's a mature, whether he's satellite, what there's a whole lot of different variations in that. There's some different type of bugles. There are actually some reed bugles that you can get that's got a reed in it that you use a push button to get the high or the low to the high and back down. But the best bugling that can be done is on a diaphragm. Now, um, there's a whole lot of better elk callers than I am. I always tell everybody be an elk hunter first and an elk caller second, just like in the turkey woods, be a turkey hunter first, turkey caller second. These are tools. These are not, don't be totally dependent on these, but these are something that can really help you be successful in the elk woods. But diaphragm. Now we've used this call right here to make a few cow calls, just like a mew, chirps, and so on. But now we're going to use the same one. That's what makes these so good. Using a diaphragm, you can do all vocalizations almost of the elk on both sides of the gender table, whether it's a male or a female. So here's a basic bugle. Once again, it's just a few notes. Starts off low, goes high, and drops off. I'm not going to do any guttural sounds or lip balls or anything like that. I'm just going to put air on the reed. And
Good one.
that's just a basic.
Got me excited. It really does.
Just a basic bugle. And as you can hear, if you think of it, I don't know how many notes it is. You can think of it kind of in a 3-stage. You start off with a low note, and then you're gonna put more pressure on the reed, and then I'm gonna drop it off. And that's a basic bugle. Now, think of a basic bugle kind of like, once again, reverting back to turkey hunting, because most of the hunters today have turkey hunted or had something to do with turkey hunting. Think of a basic bugle starting out with as a locator call. A lot of times you can go out, it's, before shooting light, you go out, it's getting close to time, to shooting hours, and you don't know where that old bull is, and you can hit that call. You don't want to blow him out. You don't really want him to come to you yet. You just hit a simple note to him, and you want him to sound off so you know where he's at, just like a roosted gobbler, so you can get in tight on him. So that's when we use a simple bugle. You can also use a simple bugle sometimes when you're in tight. Maybe you're hunting a bull that's not a herd bull. There's a whole lot of good that can happen when it comes to bugling, but there's a whole lot of bad that can happen with bugling too. You can actually mess up a hunt using bugles. And you got to think of it this way: these bulls are under a lot of pressure during this time. I mean, you take a mature bull elk and lose up to 100 pounds in body weight by the time the rut is over with, from the time he starts to the time he finishes. He's fighting, he's moving, he's constantly on the go. He's got satellite bulls trying to come in and get his harem. He's got big bulls coming in trying to take over. So he's under a lot of pressure. Fighting isn't always on his mind. So you got to be careful using a bugle and how you use it. But now there have been lots of times where I've sealed the deal for a hunter with a bugle. And we'll talk about scenarios of that in just a few moments. But we've gone over the basic bugle. Now you can add a little more realism to it with your throat. And what you basically want to do is, it's different for different people. Some people, just like with purring with a mouth call, some people can kind of, use their throat to kind of make that sound. Some people do a gargle or a hum. Was you going to say something, Joe?
No, I mean, the way that I describe this part that makes the most sense to me, when you're blowing a duck call to make that realism, that diaphragm, that, that's the way it makes the most sense to me to add that growly sound to a bugle.
Yeah, a more guttural sound. So
Yep.
the more mature a bull is a lot of times the more guttural. You'll hear us talk about guttural sounds, or he'll have that old sound. I don't know how else, and please forgive me, but it sounds like he smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for the last 20 years. He'll have that real, that real deep rasp or vibration to his call. And here's the difference. I'm just going to do a real simple one note call, and here's the difference. So here's without the guttural. Here's with the guttural or a growl. I don't know. Was you all able to hear the difference?
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah. So that's the difference between not having a growl and having a growl. So if we're talking about a common bugle with a guttural sound, this is what it's going to sound like. This isn't a challenge bugle. This is just going to be a little more mature bull. And all I'm doing is adding that growl at the beginning and adding a little bit of a growl at the end. And that's going to be giving you a little bit more of a realistic sound. Now, we've gone out in the woods and we've heard satellite bulls that only can hit a 2-note bugle, or they're not as long-winded. There's different things. And it really depends on the situation with what bugle you're going to use. Now, if you really want to hit a challenge bugle, if you really want to, you got an old stubborn bull out there, you've worked him and he's come so far, but he's really hung up. And once again, these elk are not real tight. Keep in mind, and guys, you all being the biologists you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking about the third loudest mammal in the world. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think as far as the sound can travel, yeah.
Yeah. They're one of the loudest mammals in the world. So, you'll hear these things and you'll think they're right on top of you, and they still got, some pretty good distance on them. So sometimes those old bulls will come, especially if they're mature, and they'll be like, okay, I've come so far. Where are you at? It's kind of like that old hung up gobbler. And you can challenge him. You can throw a challenge bugle at him. And that's kind of what this sounds like. You can throw a chuckle in there at the end.
And you better get a big breath before you start one of them. That's what I realized. Half the time mine stopped because I was out of air.
So when you what I done there is I started off with a growl, I bring it up, I drop it off with a long growl. Okay, I'm growling at that bull. I'm like, I'm the big dog here, not you. And then to really tick him off, I give him a real high pitched short bugle dropped off by a chuckle. That whole hooka 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 hooka. And that they chuckle, and they chuckle for different reasons. But chuckle is a sign of dominance. That's a sign that, hey, I'm ready to rock. I'm in your area or you're in my area, and I'm gonna come to you. We're gonna settle this thing. Here is what you got to be careful of. You're working a bull. This bull may not be a herd bull. This bull may have had his butt kicked over and over again. You're not going to get real aggressive with that bull, because if you do, you could blow him out of the area. So I caution everybody on using bugles relentlessly or a lot, because you can really stifle a hunt. Whereas if you go with a cow call a little bit more and only use a bull call for maybe location or something like that, you have a little bit more success, because I'm telling you, elk hunting in Kentucky is great, but it's tough. You're going to earn every stitch of that elk that you harvest. and blowing one out because you're being too aggressive with a bugle call is not very good.
Mhm.
I think we're almost fortunate that chuckling and growling is the hardest part to learn to a bugle, because that's the easiest thing to get you in trouble.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
you can only push him so far.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So what I was hearing a lot of last year, early in the day, they weren't doing a full bugle till like middle of the day.
Yeah.
I was hearing, just in the darkness, was hearing those chuckles
Yeah.
back in there. That's probably them just moving their cows around, kind of talking to the cows, and not really having much bull to bull competition. So it's something to listen for out there coming up out of the holler in the morning.
That's right. Well, a lot of common sense plays into it. A lot of common things. Sometimes we can overthink elk hunting. Sometimes we make it too complicated. If you take, for instance, an old bull that has, say he's got a harem up and he's been there and done that for a few years, and he's fought and he's earned his stripes, and he's ducked and dodged hunters, and he's done a lot of things. There's really no reason for him to be out there bellowing, all day long or all morning long and trying to attract attention. So sometimes you have to listen for those subtle sounds, especially if you're hunting a mature bull. Now, these young kids or these young, these satellite bulls or these, not as mature bulls, you take a 3-4 year old bull, that's what everybody wants to hunt. It's like a 2-year-old gobbler. He's just out there sounding off at everything. But you're right. Last year we didn't get the big action-packed bugling until more the middle of the day, and then they'll do a lot of bugling at night too. Seems like, but you got to be on your toes and listen. You gotta know what those sounds like. A bull may, he may only have to growl. We had a couple last year that all they would do was growl.
Yep.
And he don't have to bugle. He don't have to sound off. And what he's doing is he's still trying to show his dominance, not so much to the world and other bulls, but these cows are really struck on his bugle and what he's doing, and he'll do that just to kind of keep the herd in check and to try to find Estrus Calls and so on and so forth. So you as a hunter really have to be alert to these different sounds. If you're just going out there looking for a full-on bugle, you may be missing a big bull right under your nose.
The biggest bull I ever called in Kentucky, he would respond frequently, but he would never respond vocally. I only knew he was there because he was up there thrashing trees.
Yep.
And he eventually came in, but he never made a vocalization at all.
Mhm.
Yep. And there's some other vocalizations that we can talk about too. I've gone over some basic bugling just to cover one more time before we move on and we talk about some scenarios. Just a common bugle. Once again, starting off, just air on the reed, adding more air and more pressure, taking the pitch up, and then it's dropping it off at the end. This is what, and this was with a Rocky Mountain tube. And listen, one of the best, and if he sees this, he knows who I'm talking about. One of the best bugle calls that I've seen, and one of the best buglers out there, doesn't have one of these brought on. It's made from an oil funnel.
Yep.
And if the guy's watching it, he knows who it is, and you guys know who it is too. But here's the new metal one. This just came out last year from Phelps. And there it's different sounds. Really, you just need to find one that works for you, and what you like. But just a plain bugle. Here's what a plain bugle sounds like. No guttural sounds, just a locator call. Remember, we're just locating. Or we're in a scenario where we need to sound like a younger bull. We don't want to, we want maybe that big bull to come in and run us off. Here's a more mature bugle. We're adding growls to the beginning and the end. And all I'm doing is I'm just humming. I'm just using my throat. I'm just doing that. just like you would on a duck call or whatever. And you got to use different sounds to get different pitches. Then more of a challenge bugle.
It's good.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm gonna be in the garage later. I will tell you, I got to tell a funny story about bugling. I was standing in my garage. It was the edge of dark, about like it is now, and I got some people down the road with like a little fun farm, and they got all mini animals, but they got peacocks. And I fired that bugle off, and the peacocks went wild. And then one of their little baby donkeys, mini donkey, did the donkey.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeehaw.
getting back. And the damn thing about it is they're like a mile and a half down the road. I mean, it ain't close.
Right.
So,
They're like, that's the sickest peacock and donkey we've ever heard in our
yeah,
life.
I don't know what they thought it was, but I was out there. I was on the ground laughing, listening to them.
Yeah.
So,
So let's go through a typical hunt, just a what if scenario. So, it's opening day, and listen, as we progress through season, things can change. Seems like, unfortunately, the hottest part of summer seems to fall right during archery bull season. We're getting temperatures, that's well into 80s and 90s during the day. That early morning, late evening time is going to be, one of your highest success rates. But don't count out the middle of the day. Looking at topo maps, knowing your area, if you're a do-it-yourself guy, and listen, everybody looks at outfitters like, oh, they just care about what hunters they have. Well, listen, I want every hunter with every outfitter and every do-it-yourself to have success. And if there's something that I can tell somebody to help them, by all means, that's what I'm going to. I don't care who you're going with or how you're hunting, because we're all in this thing together, and I hope somebody would help me out too. That's first of all, but don't count out doing your homework right from your home and on your couch, in your seat, on your computer. Kentucky Park and Fish and Wildlife has done a great job of putting out all these area maps. You already know what unit you're drawn for. You know if you have private land or if you've been drawn for a regulated area. We have maps such as ArcGIS for the Explorer map that's got that all laid out. That's what your conservation officers and your biologists are going to go for your borders, for your RA. So you need to get that on your phone. Onyx. If you've got certain cell phone coverage and you're not going to have signal up here, Onyx has got a great feature where you can download offline maps. But keep in mind, Fish and Wildlife officers a lot of times don't go off of Onyx or whatever. If you're looking for regulated areas, you need to go by the Explorer out for ArcGIS. That's what they go by. And you need to be looking on you can pull up Google Maps, you can look at road. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can scout your area before you ever leave home. So look at the topography of that. Look for those low-lying areas. That's where those elk are going to go. Those elk are going to be feeding early in the morning, late in the evening, throughout the night, and then the hot part of the day, they're going to be going to those low-lying areas. They're going to be heading towards water in September and October when it's still hot. So these are all just hunter tactics. It ain't about being an elk hunter. It's about using the tactics you already know as a hunter. If you've if you've been a whitetail hunter or any other type of hunter. Now, you get out there, it's opening morning of whatever season it is, and it's during the bull season. You've scouted your area or you're with a guide. We're going to go out and we're going to know where they're already at, or hopefully if you're a do-it-yourself hunter, you've already done your homework and you know where they're at. But they're not going to be in the same area. These things move all night long. They're always on the go, but they'll stay in the same general vicinity. Hit them with a locator call. So you're going to go out. I tend to tell people not to use cow calls right off the start. Use a locator bugle. You're hunting for a bull, and hit him with that, and hopefully he'll answer back. So once he answers back, these things, if you think that a whitetail can smell, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you think that a whitetail can smell you, an elk will get you right now. with the smell. So you got to really mind your scent control, especially archery hunting. So you got to play the wind. You can't just go haphazardly in there and think they're not going to smell you. And once you get in there tight on them, say you got an archery hunt, that's when you break out the cow calls. You get in tight, you got the wind in your face, bulls up in front of you. You know, don't start out real loud. Start off easy with those calls and hit him with a couple of mews. You know, mix some estrus whines in there. See what he wants. Is he talking good to you? If he's bugling a lot to you, then you probably don't need to call a whole lot. Is he closing the distance? You know, if he's not closing the distance, you need to be closing the distance. Don't just sit and be an elk caller, be an elk hunter. Use the terrain to your advantage and make a move on him. Now, when you get in, and one of the biggest things that I see elk hunters, one of the biggest mistakes, especially for archery hunters, if you're using a compound or traditional equipment where you have to draw, hunters want to set themselves up where that bull is going to be coming headlong at them. I see this mistake all the time. You don't want a headlong bull, you want a broadsided bull. When that bull pops up, you want to be on one side or the other depending on how the wind is. It's one of the most common mistakes I've seen. So if you've got a buddy that can call, you can put him out in front of, off to the side, and you have to get off where you can get that broadside shot, because a bull head on to you is not going to do you much good. It's not a good ethical shot. You got to get drawn back. There's a lot of things that go wrong. So position yourself. If you got a buddy that's calling and the bull's coming this way, you get back up off of the trail the way you think he's going to anticipate for that broadside shot. So say the bull hangs up. He's hung up 100 yards out there. Sometimes you can give him the silent treatment. It's just like with turkey hunting. Sometimes you back off the amount of calling. Sometimes you hit him with a little more excited calls. And just like we touched there a while ago, don't forget your non-vocal calls. Well, what's that? Well, these things have these huge antlers on top of their head, and they love to break brush. Even when they're walking through the woods, they're breaking brush. A lot of times they'll get caught on a branch or they'll hit a low-lying branch. Get you a stick. If that bull is out of view where he can't see, now you don't want to do this to one that's 40, 50 yards and closing. But if he's hung up there out there 100 yards and he can't have a good view to you, get you a stick and wear a bush out, an autumn olive or the side of a tree. Stomp around on the ground a little bit. Any kind of realistic things you can do besides just vocal calls is going to put more odds in your favor, especially if one's hung up. And then that could be enough to maybe bring him in. Now, I have seen where we've called an elk with a cow call and he's real hot, but he may have some cows with him. And he just comes right out of that range. He's right about that 70, 80 yard range. You haven't got a good view of him, but he's right there. And if he can close maybe 20 more yards, you can get that good shot on him. I've gave him the silent treatment. He'll hang around. I'll hit him with a cow call. He still won't come. At that time, my last option is to hit that bull with a bugle. And what he thinks is that another bull has moved in. Oh, I've got an Estrus cow out here. She's gone crazy. She's gave me the silent treatment. I've not came to her, but there's another bull. You may not want to hit him with a full-on challenge bugle. You may just want to give him a growl. You may just want to give him a little something, see how he reacts. But that may be enough to bring him in. So, for me to give you the perfect scenario, it's really hard to be able to do that. But if you know all these things and you listen, just like with an old gobbler, if he's an old mature gobbler, he may not like a lot of calling. But then again, you may be dealing with one that's real hot and he's coming in on a string, and it doesn't matter what you throw at him. But it seems like a lot, but right here is your most powerful weapon. Using common sense, using your woodsmanship to be able to know, hey, this is not anything out of the sorts to me. I've been here with whitetail. I've been here with wild turkey. I've been in these situations before, and I've got a few extra tools to be able to close the distance.
We have me personally, at least, I have a really hard time with this because everybody asks me, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in that situation? I don't know, man. You know, you got to be there because every single one of them's different. Like we talked about, they want something different each day. What works good being all aggressive in this bull's face yesterday might not work tomorrow. Might even be on the same bull and he might be in a different bull the next day, you know.
That's right.
So it's hard to do. You just kind of got to feel it out.
Yeah.
And it's a good
You
job
know,
explaining that.
That's right. And be patient. Be patient. You know, when you blow that hunt, when you blow those elk out there, that hunt is done. Now, that's not to say you're not going to be able to go get on another bull or not, whatever. But you've spent, you know, whatever time working this bull, you know, working these animals in. The worst thing you can do is get real antsy. You know, I'm not a real patient guy. I'm a run and gun guy in the turkey woods. And my buddies will say he's the most impatient guy we've ever seen. Well, my rule of thumb this year in the turkey woods was, especially with the tough year that we had this year. And listen, I had a great year of turkey hunting. I don't know what everybody else done. I had a great year. I only killed one bird in Kentucky. We killed some birds and had some opportunities in other states. But I heard a lot of birds this year. It was just a different year. And if you didn't adapt, you were kind of left out. But my thing that I worked on myself as a hunter this year is I said as long as I thought I should have said, and I waited 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with elk hunting. You know, you've worked that bull in close. You've got him within that, you know, 70, 80, you know, 100-yard mark. Why get real antsy then and go charging in? You know, especially if you're using archery equipment. You might get away with some of that stuff with a firearm, but be patient. Move in small increments. Be a hunter. Mind the wind. Mind your scent. Always on your scent control with archery hunting. And slow down. I try to tell everybody comes up here to Eastern Kentucky in the mountains and they're hung up on a harvest. I get it. You know, some of these people, it's took 15, 16, you know, 17 plus years to get a tag. I get it. It took you that long to get a tag. The worst thing you do is come up here and be focused solely on a harvest and be focused solely on getting it done in a hurry. Slow down. Use your intellect that you've had over many years of hunting. Enjoy the moment. You got 5 days for a firearm hunt. You've only got 3 weeks for an archery hunt. Slow down and enjoy it, man. It took you this many years to get it. Why would you rush through it now? And don't be, if you're focused on just the harvest, there's going to be a lot of people disappointed. Not because they're not going to harvest, because the opportunity's there. Because they're going to miss the best part of it. And don't be afraid to be a hunter. Don't just be a caller, but be a hunter.
Absolutely, man. I had a good buddy of mine that I took down to unfortunately some property we don't have anymore. Had a phenomenal hunt, called the elk every day, heard elk every day. I'm not sure they saw an elk. I'm not sure that I actually saw one, maybe an antler tip. But we had them probably inside of 50, 60 yards twice.
Yep.
And you know, he was like, that was the most fun I've had doing anything.
Yep.
And it was fun. It was that first, you know, it was first bull week. They were bugling really good. You know, and we went up and down the mountains and sideways. He had his 10-year-old kid with him. He had no idea what he'd gotten himself into. Saw rattlesnakes, saw a bear, you know, hell of an East Kentucky experience.
That's great, man. And you know, and he didn't harvest. And listen, we want everybody to harvest. But now in 2022, and another thing, a lot of people will talk to elk hunters that were drawn early on, you know, pre what I call that 2012 mark, you know, 2012, 2013. Elk hunting was much different then than it is now. And we've seen it evolve into, you know, a more difficult hunt. Elk hunting's tough. You know, if elk hunting was easy, there would not be any elk left out west. Everybody would be going and killing them.
That's right.
And it's no different here than in Eastern Kentucky. And the opportunity is there. It's in our own backyard. And, you know, we hear all kinds of different things. Listen, you got a Kentucky elk tag. Enjoy it. get out and enjoy what is the Eastern Kentucky experience, because there's no place. I've hunted all over the United States. There's no place like it, and it's special, and it is absolutely awesome. And if you get to kill an elk, that's icing on the cake. And people will hire an outfitter thinking that it's a guaranteed deal. I'm telling you right now, there is no guarantees in the elk woods anymore, other than if you focus on the right things, you're going to have a great hunt. What a great opportunity to be able to hunt elk in our backyard here in Eastern Kentucky. No matter where you're at, you're within a day's drive. And, being able to say that, you went out and you done your best and you hunted hard. I mean, harvest or no harvest, man, it's a win-win.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So, but, in closing, once again, we've got three main cow calls. You got the mew, the chirp, you've got the estrus whine. You've got a series of different bugles, whether that'll be just a locator bugle, a challenge bugle, or a more mature bugle. Don't forget to utilize things like scraping on trees. These things that stomp in the woods. And also your setups. Talk about setups for just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a lot of folks who call me and say, "Are we going to stand hunt?" If you've got a good food source, if you've got an area that's just absolutely wore down, and those elk are habitually coming through there time and time, you could get away with some stand hunt. But elk hunting is a game of mobility. It is a hunt of mobility, and that's where the majority of your success. I'm not saying that there's not room for some stand or some blind hunting. If you know where an excellent wallow is, that's a good place to set up. It's fresh and muddy and stomped down. That's an excellent place to set up on a bull or a food source. But most of it is run and gun hunting. Knowing the terrain, looking at those maps. We very seldom just sit in an area, and if we sit in an area, a lot of times it's evening hunting, watch for them to come out, and then make a move to be able to get after them. So if you can, if you can do the whole run and gun, and listen, different situations for different people. And I have to say this. I do have to say this. I get a lot of people that'll call and say, "Well, I'm this age," or "I've had this ailment," or "I've had this." Listen, we had a guy last year that came and hunted with us, very near and dear to my heart. Paralyzed on one side of his body, paralyzed, and this guy harvested a bull with us, an archery bull,
Mm-hmm.
a very nice bull, and I mean, this guy was amazing. You got to get out there and you got to try, and you got to hunt to your ability, and that's what we tell our hunters. Listen, everybody's like, "What can we expect?" Do what you can. If you can do some cardio, if you can do some walking, you get some steps in. The worst thing you do is be complacent and not do anything. But hunt to your ability, and your guide should be hunting to your ability. If you hire a guide, use these tools. Even if you hired a guide, listen, that guide, if somebody can come down and hunt with me, and they can call, we've got two people now, and we may be able to get a scenario to where two of us can really work on those animals. So just because you hire a guide, it's your hunt. And I urge everybody to pick you up a few calls, order you a few calls. Like you said, Amazon can have you some calls to your doorstep within a couple of days.
Yep.
Start practicing, get the most out of your hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned the fellow that was paralyzed on the last podcast. He called me on the way home. I knew that y'all had gotten hooked up, which was good. I knew that'd be an advantage for him, but he was absolutely, there was a period of time there early on where he was like, maybe this hunt's not for me, but he got it done. And I tell you, he called me on the ride home, and I talked to him for about an hour, and he couldn't. He was beside himself. So
Yeah,
it can be done. We have
right.
These hunters come from all walks of life, all ages, all types, and
And all deserving.
yeah,
All
absolutely.
deserving. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's wonderful, man. I tell you, I that's what it's all about. All the hunters and everything's great, but when you get somebody like that that's just as humble as he was, and all the hunters, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yep, yep, yep. He had a
That's the
hell of a
stuff
good time.
That's the stuff that I personally like the most. It's what keeps me here.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
enjoy helping hunters and seeing them be successful in that. I mean, I've had guys that 5 minutes into their first day of hunting, they shoot a spike and they're just stoked, you know.
Yep.
And to be able to help people do that stuff, it's really rewarding.
yeah,
Yep,
it is. That's
absolutely.
the kind of hunts I love, man. You know, those people that come down, you know, you got different. And listen, to each their own. It's their tag, and you know, if they want to hunt for a 400-inch elk, or if they just are, you know, let the hunt dictate what's going to happen. To each their own. But now those people that come down here, man, and have a good time, and they just go out and they know what it is and have the experience that is Eastern Kentucky, and that is a Kentucky elk hunt. Yeah, bring them on, man. That's what I like to do.
Yep.
Get too focused as hunters a lot of times on antlers and scores and blood on the boots. You know, it's
That's right.
the experience, and down there it's unlike anything else. You know, it's completely different part of the state, completely different habitat, terrain. It's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep, a lot of good times down there. So
Man, we sure appreciate you coming on to talk to us. It's definitely a wealth of information, and I'm hoping I can pick up something. At least if I can't, then I hope John can, so he can call my bull in for me in September. But it's been very, very well received, and I think this will help a lot of people.
Great, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I love what you guys do and getting to work with you all. Joe, I've got to work with you for a few years, but John and I go back, and I'll tell you something, John, we're becoming the old fogies among the group. You know, we were back when we were kind of the young cats walking around, and I just tell you, man, it's a few of those aches and pains and popping and cracking when I get up in the morning. I'm realizing I ain't the young cat on the block anymore, but I appreciate everything y'all do, man. Can't say enough good things about the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, the elk restoration, the good things that you all are doing. And the Kentucky Elk Guide Association, everybody that's a part of that, trying to help out with that. Sometimes we get a bad rap for being these big bad guides that just money hungry. I can promise you, for me and the Kentucky Elk Guide Association, it's not about that. It's about this resource, and it's about the people of the Commonwealth and the people coming into the Commonwealth to enjoy these great resources, hopefully for generations to come. And I just thank you both for everything you do.
Well, we appreciate it. Certainly appreciate your time this evening and all you've done for us in the past. So I like to put Joe on the spot at the end of these and get him to give us a closer.
Pick up some elk calls, at least have a couple in your arsenal. Learn how to do some basic cow sounds and have fun.
That's it. That's the theme of the night. And I'll be real honest with you. It can be done. Hour or two in the garage. You probably don't want to do it sitting in the living room while the kids and wife are trying to watch TV or something. I get cast out to the to the garage. It happens to be the goose call tends to be the most abrasive. But an elk bugle, I get old after a while.
She hates all of them because as soon as I started, I got the twins. My turn, might take a turn, and then it's just on. We're all in trouble.
Exactly. So my closer, I've been trying to hit it hard physically. Trinity might not know. Joe and I are going to Colorado in September, and I've been cranking it along pretty good all summer, trying to do something 3 or 4 days a week. This hot spell that we had just took my soul out. Fought through that, but this is the time to crank it up a little bit. So I've been cranking it up, and I feel pretty good. Got over that. I feel like I got over that hump, but get out there and do something. That's my closer. I've used it before, but I'll use it.
Yeah, man, you told me that was a terrible closer before. I tried to say the same thing.
No,
It's every single time we do one of these.
He had
beaten into the ground.
He had some soft closers. I snuck a good workout in between leaving work and jumping on this thing. So it doesn't seem like it's as hot outside, but it's been miserably humid. So.
Now I'm gonna tell you something, John. That humidity out there you've been skipping out on them 90+ degree days. That's just good practice for that thin air up there above 9,000-10,000.
I know. Joe wanted to go hunting a unit with some 13,000-foot mountains on it.
Yeah.
So
You
we're
better
gonna be
have
up
your
there.
You better have your big boy shorts on for that one.
Oh, you're telling me it was described to me as a well, one of the fellas that we got that's got a Kentucky tag this year. We'll give a shout out to him. We've talked to him a little bit about Colorado hunting, but it was described to him as a horseman's unit. I think that's how he put it. So we'll see. So I'm trying to do like you should do, get in the best possible shape that you can. So
good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with that, we'll end it. I think. What are you thinking for next week, Joe? Talk about packing elk out. That'd probably be
I think that's the next one on our schedule.
Yep.
Yep. I'm pretty open. I'd love to hear some more questions from the hunters and see what they're wanting to learn more about.
Let us know. We got a couple more we can squeeze in here before bull season starts, and then we'll pick up on some cow topics there towards the end
we
of
need
October.
to do citizen science in the next 2 weeks, probably 2-3 weeks.
And one thing, I guess, let me have a second closing. One thing I forgot to mention is don't be afraid also to take a cow call with you. I forgot about the cow hunters, man.
Mm-hmm.
Take a cow call with you into the cow woods. It may be late season and you're not listening for a bugle, but I've been out in areas before that I knew there were elk there, not being able to spot them, but I hit a cow call. And the next thing I know, just a few hundred yards away, I hear a whole herd of cows fire up from me just hitting a cow call. So don't be afraid to, you're not going to take the bugle with you to the cow woods, but don't be afraid to take a cow call with you and make some sounds. You never know, you may be able to call one in, or if you're in an area you know where they're at, but you can't pinpoint them, may be enough for those calves to fire off, give themselves away. And also, it's a good way to stop, especially if you're dealing with a novice hunter. It's a good way to stop one to get that longer shot, get that longer standstill broadside shot for maybe somebody that's not as proficient with a firearm.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't cow hunt without one. The cow that I killed, I wouldn't have stopped her any other way, I guess, other than yelling at her. And I was scrambling to get that cow call out of my bino harness and blow that thing. She stopped. It all worked out. So
great.
Don't count it out. My dad killed a cow on December 9th in 2016. I called the cow in, but there was a bull screaming his head off.
Yep. So Trinity's closer that'll make up for both ours. That was a good one. Oh, all right. Well, we'll let everybody go. Looking, definitely have a couple more coming up that'll be of interest. Packing out is a good one. Just kind of getting prepared there to get your elk out of the woods and back home. So be looking for that one coming up. But with that, appreciate it, Trinity, again for jumping on, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.